Let's go back to 1999. Microsoft is, without a doubt, the king of the PC. So why on earth would they decide to wage a multi-billion-dollar war just for a spot under your television? Well, this is the story of that massive gamble, a wild tale of huge risks, legendary rivalries, and some billion-dollar mistakes that totally changed the world of gaming.
All right, let's just get right into it, because this is the key to the whole story. In the late 90s, Microsoft is looking around, and they see Sony's PlayStation just absolutely taking over living rooms everywhere. And they realized, hey, wait a minute, this isn't just about video games. It was about who was going to own the entire entertainment hub in your home, the one device for movies, music, and games. For Microsoft, a company built on the idea that the Windows PC was that hub, well, this was a massive threat.
So you're Microsoft, and you see this rival ecosystem popping up right where you want to be. What do? Well, a small, kind of secret team inside the company decides to fight back. And they pitch this really audacious idea directly to Bill Gates himself.
Their project had a code name, the DirectX box. Now, DirectX was Microsoft's secret sauce for PC gaming. It was the essential graphics software. So the name was actually a really clever wink to game developers, basically saying, hey, this new console, it's going to be easy for you to work with. The mission itself was simple but, incredibly ambitious. Build a machine powerful enough to stop Sony in its tracks and carve out a space for Microsoft in the living room.
And let's be super clear, this was not some fun little passion project. This was a stone-cold, calculated business move. It was both defensive and offensive. They had to protect their Windows empire, right? They wanted to directly challenge Sony's growing power, hopefully create a whole new way to make money, and of course use their DirectX expertise as a huge advantage to get game developers on board.
And this was the result. A big, black beast of a machine. When it launched in 2001, the original Xbox was, for all intents and purposes, a PC crammed into a console's body. And to get this thing into people's homes, Microsoft basically decided to lose money on every single one they sold just to build up a user base. This led to a truly staggering loss of around $4 billion just on the hardware. And yeah, this table really shows you what an incredible uphill battle they were fighting. The PlayStation 2 was an absolute juggernaut, and remember, it was also a cheap DVD player, which was a huge deal for families back then. It sold 155 million units. The Xbox sold a pretty respectable 24 million, and that was almost entirely thanks to two things: its revolutionary online service, Xbox Live, and one legendary killer app. A game so good it sells the console all by itself. And that game was Halo. So Microsoft didn't win the war, not by a long shot, but it proved it could compete, and it established that all-important foothold.
Okay, so they survived round one. Let's move on to the next chapter, because after proving they belonged in the ring, Microsoft came out swinging for round two with their second console. And this was their absolute peak.
The Xbox 360, which launched in 2005, was a total phenomenon. It sold 84 million units over its lifetime. And for a good chunk of time, it actually outsold the PlayStation 3 right here in North America, which made Microsoft the market leader. Xbox Live just exploded in popularity, and huge franchises like Gears of War and Forza really cemented the 360's place in gaming history.
But, and it's a huge but, this incredible success story had a fatal flaw. A widespread hardware failure symbolized by this dreaded red ring of death plagued all the early consoles. If you were a gamer back then, seeing this image probably still gives you chills. It was a PR nightmare, and it ended up costing Microsoft over $1 billion to fix all the broken machines.
So after the incredible high of the 360, Microsoft looked like they were poised to just dominate the next generation. But instead, they made one of the most infamous fumbles in the history of gaming. They completely misread their audience and lost every bit of momentum they had built. This quote, it says everything you need to know. At the big reveal event in 2013 for their next console, the Xbox One, the focus wasn't on games. It was on television. Microsoft was trying to sell this thing not as the ultimate gaming machine, but as an all-in-one entertainment box for your living room. And for their core audience of gamers, that message just fell completely flat.
And the TV thing was really just the start of the problems. The console was $100 more expensive than Sony's PlayStation 4, mostly because it came bundled with a mandatory Kinect motion sensor that, frankly, a lot of gamers just didn't want. And then, to top it all off, their messaging around an always-online requirement was super confusing, and it sparked these huge fears about whether you could even play used games. It was just a perfect storm of terrible decisions.
And the results were, well, they were brutal.
The PlayStation 4, which Sony very cleverly marketed as being for the players, just absolutely demolished the Xbox One in sales. We're talking more than double the numbers. Microsoft had lost an entire generation that they were pretty much expected to win.
So after being completely humbled by the failure of the Xbox One, Microsoft knew it couldn't win just by trying to play Sony's game anymore. So they decided to change the rules of the game completely. And this led to maybe the most radical strategic shift in the company's entire history.
Their answer was Game Pass. It launched pretty quietly back in 2017, and it was a revolutionary idea. A subscription service, just like Netflix, but for video games. You pay one monthly fee, you get access to this huge library of games. But here's the absolute killer feature. You get Microsoft's own brand new games the very same day they release. That was a total game changer.
And this completely flipped their business model on its head. All of a sudden, consoles like the super powerful Series X or the cheap digital-only Series S, they weren't just boxes to sell games on anymore. They became gateways. They were the most convenient and affordable ways to get people into the Game Pass ecosystem. Now, if your whole strategy is now content, like Netflix, what do you need? You need a ton of content. So Microsoft opened up its checkbook and went on an absolutely historic shopping spree, which all led to the colossal $69 billion acquisition of Activision Blizzard. This brought massive franchises like Call of Duty and World of Warcraft into the Xbox family, and it was basically Microsoft screaming to the world that they were all in on Game Pass.
And that brings us to where Xbox is today, to their modern vision. The goal is no longer just to sell you a console. The goal is to get you playing their games on pretty much any device you own. On your Xbox, yeah, but also on your PC, or even streamed from the cloud to your phone. I mean, they've even started putting their games on PlayStation and Nintendo now, which is just wild to think about.
And this leaves us with a really fascinating final thought. By shifting their whole focus away from selling hardware and onto selling a service, has Microsoft basically just declared an end to the traditional console war? They're not just trying to sell more boxes than Sony anymore. They're building this huge gaming empire that exists everywhere. It's been a 25-year gamble that just might be paying off in a way that nobody could have ever predicted.